good to go. Thank you guys all for joining in today. Today is going to be an interesting topic. Today we are talking about poop. And some of the promotion that we did before this video, we're live on Instagram and Facebook. If you're watching this after the fact, please feel free to comment and join in. All these videos we share via our website at gaspersbest.com as well after the fact on our podcast player too, in case you're listening that way. But for those of you joining us here live today, we are talking about poop. And we got some interesting comments and interesting shares when we told everyone we were talking about poop this week. Some people laughed. Some people were like, why would I talk about that? Which is understandable. It's a little bit of a stinky topic. You know what I mean?
And hopefully it's after your lunchtime.
Yeah, right. Hopefully, yeah, unfortunately, we are kind of doing this on lunchtime, depending on where you are. But poop is really important. And your poop and the way it looks can tell you a lot about your health. And it can tell you a lot about, if things are going well inside your body or if things are not going well inside your body. And we're going to talk about a couple of different things you can do to, one, identify what might be going on inside your body, what might be a challenge that you're experiencing. And then two, we will also discuss some things you can do to try to improve the quality of your poop and therefore the quality of your health as well. So this is going to get a bit messy, but it's a good thing to do. And the way I feel too, being in healthcare, a lot of topics are things that are sensitive that people are taboo or don't feel comfortable talking about. But the more open you are about talking and sharing these things, particularly with your provider or other healthcare practitioners that you see, the more likely you are to improve things and have better outcomes. I don't know how you feel about that.
Absolutely. And another thing is you really have to pay attention. Sometimes you just go to the bathroom and sometimes you kind of want to look once in a while, especially if your stomach wasn't feeling well for a few days, you feel constipated or having the runs, whatever the deal is, or you just you've been feeling like pretty crappy lately,
I don't think that was intentional.
No, it wasn't, but it's definitely sometimes you really just have to be mindful. You know what? Once in a while, take a look at it. How does it look, actually? Because it can tell a lot about your gut health, and your gut health has everything to do with your overall health.
Exactly. And as an added bonus here for joining us on this slightly taboo and uncomfortable topic, we have two poopery sprays here. They're travel poopery, so now that things are opening up again, if you are hitting the road and trying to travel a little bit and need some cover, if you will, for anyone who comments, we will randomly choose someone who's commented on the video as we go, and we'll give one of these away. So
along with that, the smell actually is very important as well. And
yeah, that's true.
Once in a while, you're like, oh, you can't, you are in the bathroom and for some reason you can't stand your own smell, then there might be something wrong at the same time.
And going off that, let's actually just get into the meat and potatoes here. So this graphic is from a company called Precision Nutrition, which is one of the places where I have a certification from. So I will share this now. It's hard to see on Instagram. I'll move it in a sec. But basically, you've got shape and texture. So you've got, in the red zone, you've got some, kind of deer pellety looking stuff. And then you've got some watery stuff. And all the way it goes, I'll move it for Instagram now too, to essentially what you're looking for, which is a solid, how would you describe it? Almost like a banana is what your poop should look like if it's a healthy poop.
Right.
And then from there, it kind of gets a little more crumbly or a little more watery. It's disgusting. I talked even about doing some modeling today, of not with real stuff, but with, peanut butter or something like that. But that was vetoed, so we spared you that. But basically, that is what you're looking for when it comes to poop and what you should be looking at. Some possible red flags along with that would include color. Right?
Absolutely. The color you wouldn't be too alarmed right away. There are other definitely reasons why your color of your poop would be changed. Number one reason is what you eat, obviously.
Obviously, yeah.
Let's just say, wow, you know what? I'm gonna try to eat healthy, and I want to eat a salad now, 3 meals a day, and all of a sudden your poop might be a little greenish. That's possible. Beets, obviously, red, but the number one thing, but there are definitely different colors, and that indicates different possible scenarios.
Hmm.
Like something like yellow.
And it was all
Then
yellow.
there's a definite distinction between yellow and brown. You
Right.
know, so
So color's one thing. The smell, if it's extremely,
right.
extremely bad, that could mean something's off too. And some of these things could be, hey, like, listen, I just had a long weekend, ate a lot of not so good food, so that's clearly what's
Or
going on.
alcohol.
Or alcohol. Some of it could be something worse. So it's something that you want to pay attention to. Also, well, let's ask this: how frequent is normal?
I think there's a lot of different theories on that.
Uh huh.
Some people just go once daily, and up to even three times daily is considered normal. And some people may feel like that going three times daily. I've gotten calls like am I going too much? And the answer is no. As long as your stool seems fine and shape and texture looks okay, there is there's no problem there. But obviously when the constipation is happening, if you're going for
Yeah, if you're
not for a
if
few
it's a lot
days,
of effort as well,
right?
that's usually not a good sign too. And thanks for the comment on Facebook, Marnie. So yeah, typically 1 to 3 times is considered normal. So let's kind of get into some of these things. Like, okay, let's say this is not you. Let's say, it's not typically banana shaped. It's not typically, every, 1 to 3 times in that range per day. Maybe it's a couple days without it, or maybe when you do go, it's runny or discolored or, any of those kinds of things. Let's kind of get into what some of the causes of that could be and
Sure.
then some suggestions on what you can do about that.
Absolutely. Generally, when people begin to worry is, and again, since I'm a pharmacist, first thing I check is, did you start any new medications?
Hmm.
That can go with either constipation or diarrhea.
Right, on both
Usually,
sides.
people are more concerned with diarrhea when you start, mostly like to happen when you start an antibiotic, a strong antibiotic. And that actually makes perfect sense because there's about 1,000 different species living in your colon. There's whole microbiome. There's a whole world in there, with bacteria in there. And when you take an antibiotic, that it disturbs that whole flora, your gut flora. And then what happens is that can lead to a lot of having a diarrhea. That's why if you heard, a lot of pharmacists and doctors will recommend you supplement yourself with a probiotic, good bacteria, because, simply put, antibacteria doesn't discriminate a lot of times. It will kill good and bad bacteria in your stomach. That's within their spectrum. So it's definitely, and that when that happens, that's why and some people we get a call a lot of times. Well, should I stop it? I mean, that depends, on the symptoms, and how you're feeling. A lot of times, people write it out. And make sure that you supplement yourself with your not just a probiotic, but even a PDLA if you're having a lot of runs. That's definitely can be an issue. Or iron pills. Iron pills, if you start iron supplement, that can make it, black tarry stool, more constipation. It can cause constipation, So that's number one. And
So the biggest thing, yeah, is something is messing up your gut. Something is messing up your microbiome, like James alluded to, the bacteria in your health. So a big cause of that can be antibiotics and different medication that you're taking. Blood sugar irregularities, which there's a
right.
bunch of different causes for that. Nutritional deficiencies is a big one that not a lot of people often consider or maybe don't want to think about necessarily. If you are deficient in certain nutrients, that can completely mess up your microbiome and your gut health in general. Actually, something new that we are starting to do at the pharmacy as of June as well is nutrient testing. So if you're interested in doing some of those tests to find out, if you are, depleted in certain nutrients for certain reasons, so you can adjust your diet and your supplementation program with intention and specifically knowing what you need to be doing. That's something we're doing too.
Yeah, if I may elaborate a little bit
Sure.
on the testing part of it, there are a few different testing that we can absolutely help you with. As Vince alluded to, like obviously micronutrients, number one thing. We can also check for food sensitivity. That's slightly different. Sometimes, it's a food sensitivity that's causing inflammation in the gut, versus lack of a certain nutrient. Or we can just do whole overhaul with your gut, check your gut, check for the entire microbiome, check maybe it's a parasite, maybe it's viral, maybe it's fungus issue, that sometimes not usually taken a look at. Or it can be even just a pure leaky gut or inflammation. So there's so many possibilities that can happen
Right.
with your gut. So there are actually testing that we can help you with to specifically go over
Help
them.
figure out exactly
Yep,
what's causing it. So other
exactly.
things too can include, you know, procedures like bariatric surgery, Crohn's disease and that kind of stuff. These are all things too. Something you might not consider as well, though, is your sleep. So if
Hmm.
somehow your sleep is disrupted, your circadian rhythms off, maybe, travel, maybe work, whatever it is, young kids, that kind of stuff too, and you're up a lot, that can actually disrupt your microbiome and your gut as well. And that can be kind of one of the underlying causes of this that is telling you, hey, there's something not going correct in your body.
Right, because while you're sleeping, that's when your gut moves most. While you're sleeping, when you're relaxed. For example, when you are up under a lot of stress, and some people, your gut just sometimes stop moving, or you get a spasm and have the runs and things like that. Some people have the issues with that. But that's why good night's sleep is definitely important to make sure that you're moving things properly in your gut. And on a side note, that's why probiotics are generally best to take at nighttime right before you go to bed.
Yes. So that way you're not, digesting and destroying the bacteria you're putting in there. Well, digesting as much, I should say. But yeah, and there's a lot of different things we could talk about. So obviously, okay, well, these are a lot of potential different issues. So outside of figuring out which one of those is the issue, which we can help do as well if anyone's interested in giving us a call at the pharmacy afterwards. What can you do about it in general? I mean, the biggest, most common thing outside of, hey, there's an allergen or hey, there's some, different in the medication I'm taking or what I've been eating lately or that kind of stuff. Eating more whole foods meaning, foods from nature, plants, vegetables, all that good
Fiber.
stuff. More fiber, more starch, things that are going to help improve your microbiome. Like, even if not a probiotic, eating more, yogurt with active cultures or sauerkraut or, cheeses with active cultures, that kind of stuff too,
Yep.
more natural stuff. Changing your diet is ultimately going to be the most common recommendation, and changing your diet in a way that's intentional too. So if this is caused by, James mentioned some gluten sensitivity or wheat sensitivity stuff, which is more and more common these days, even if it's something else beyond that, doing an elimination diet and taking a journal to say, hey, you know what, after I eat this food or that food, I do notice that the next day my poop seems to be a little weirder or a little off or whatever, that kind of stuff. Anytime, if you start to notice patterns like that, that may be a good sign to tell you, hey, you know what, it's this particular food that's irritating me, or hey, this particular stress or sleep. We talk about stress and sleep, but the reason that's connected is because your gut is considered like your second brain. So a lot of
No,
stress
absolutely.
hormones and that kind of stuff, they
Absolutely.
actually influence your stomach as well and can completely mess up your microbiome. And if that's all messed up, you're not going to be absorbing the nutrients you need. You're not going to be absorbing or processing your food properly too, and that can cause other long-term challenges or issues. Yeah. I mean, on Facebook, Marnie shared she has some insomnia challenges as well. If you want to talk about that, you can give us a call at the pharmacy. You can find us at 201-997-2010. Once we're done, and we'd be happy to chat about that. We talk to people about that kind of stuff all the time and get into specifics of, okay, how can we, help with some of those kinds of issues.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, overall, what we're trying to emphasize here is the fact that you want to talk about it and you want to
Yeah,
actually take a look. Some people, and a lot of customers actually sometimes, when I ask about it, I ask about it quite often, actually.
about poop.
Actually, I do. How's your bowel movement? How's your stool? Because if you're having a stomach problem, that's generally the first question I will ask. Except most people, you might find surprising. The answer is I'm not sure. Or
Right, or
they
people
just
don't
kind
want to
of
talk
like they don't
about
want to
it.
talk about it. But it's extremely important because the first, the clue that you have for yourself and for healthcare professional is how'd your poop look like?
Yeah, it's a really good indicator of how things are going in general. Um, so yeah, again, going back to the diet stuff, if you guys have any questions too, feel free to chime them out there. I know this is a little sensitive topic. Maybe people don't want to pose questions about, but fiber, we talked about fiber, we talked about sensitivities. Processed food in general doesn't, if we eat a lot of fake foods, our stomach is not our stomach has not evolved to
digest.
digest a lot of the fake foods that are out there. When I say fake food, I mean the good stuff. I mean, the candy, the ice cream, even some breads, and that kind of stuff too. They are not uh, designed with our stomach and digestive system heads in mind. So reducing some of that kind of stuff will help as well long term with those things that you're doing. Another thing that James kind of alluded to as well is hydration. So if you're not hydrated enough, that can totally impact your stomach health as well. And if you are experiencing the runs and that kind of stuff, getting some more electrolytes and those kinds of things into your system is important too. That's why James mentioned the Pedialyte earlier and that kind of stuff.
I mean, not along with the Pedialyte as well, but and again, I also want to talk a little bit more about the medications as well. I know I talked about the antibiotics. Painkillers actually can do that. Painkillers can actually cause constipation a lot of times, and that's definitely a big issue. And uh, and with the colors, we were talking about a little bit about, we showed you about the shapes. With the color, sometimes a yellow colored stool means that you may have a gluten sensitivity, and that's where we're talking about with food sensitivity. Black stool can be either iron or, PPI or those things like omeprazole and things like that sometimes can cause
Yeah, like the
an issue
acid
with that.
reflux stuff.
Right, and then sometimes it can be an indication of a possible stomach bleed as well. But one thing that you definitely want to take a look at, God forbid, if your stool is like white or clay,
Hi, Lisa.
that's something that may be issue with the bile. If it's red, then it means it might be a blood issue. So obviously those two things are definitely very important. Something green is green can be either or. It might be just that your bowels way moving too fast and then just having a
Mm.
little bit of green from what you ate. But that's depending on what color it is, and definitely call and ask. I mean, it's not sometimes. I mean, all the pharmacists are a lot of available to answer most of your questions about these. Whether you should talk to the doctor or we can try to help you. Go through a step by step how you're feeling. But we definitely want to raise your awareness to talk about it and think about it.
I will add too. We were talking about fiber earlier, and we were talking about starches and that kind of stuff. Those are carbohydrates. So I know that there's a lot of talk about low carb or keto diet and that kind of stuff. Not having enough fiber, carbohydrates, to help feed your microbiome can completely mess up your microbiome as well, especially if you are doing what people would consider dirty keto, meaning you are doing keto, but, clean keto, quote unquote, would be okay, I'm keto, but I'm eating a ton of vegetables, a ton of healthier stuff too, or more nutritious stuff, I should say, as opposed to dirty keto, which is bacon, high fat, like all the processed stuff too. So that can completely cause it as well. We talked about stress. We haven't talked about allostatic load in a while, but going to topics of insomnia, stress, we all allostatic load is basically what you would consider your tipping point stress wise. Like this is how much I can handle, and it's different for every person, and it's different for every circumstance too, right? Like maybe I can quote unquote handle something better than James can, and maybe the same scenario, a different scenario, he would handle better than I would. We all react differently to things. But stress is crucial for this as well. It can completely mess up your digestive system too. So if you are experiencing excessive stress, that kind of stuff, it's something that you want to address head on as well. That's why some of this journaling stuff really helps because it helps for your diet and you can help figure out, hey, if maybe there's something I'm eating that's throwing things out of whack, or maybe there's something I'm drinking that's throwing things out of whack, or maybe it's a particular stressor in my life right now that repeats, that's throwing things out of whack too. So all important things to consider. And the last thing I'll mention too is exercise. The simplest answer
Yep.
is not ever always the answer everyone wants to hear, but usually it's the correct one. Eating more whole foods, eating more nutritious, making sure you exercise consistently and you're not over exercising, but or you're not under exercising either. Finding that nice balance of everything is usually the yeah. Thanks, Lisa, for that. Is usually the answer for everything. Do you have any other thoughts you want to add, or any other questions from the crowd here before we wrap up? I know this was a an interesting topic too. Um, you know, it's there. There are some other things we could talk about in terms of stress, and we kind of talked about it with exercise, but going for a walk, making sure you get enough sun exposure for vitamin D, massage, deep breathing, meditation. Any of that light kind of stuff is good. This is something that is also a taboo topic, but since we're on the taboo topics, let's throw them out there. Having sex also can help in that range as well, from de-stressing kind of side of things too. So these are all things to consider. Or, good old-fashioned meditation works too.
Right. I mean, the point we're trying to make, and again, is that the stool is one of the indicators that some of these are not working, whether it's stress, what you're eating, or lack of exercise. It's an indicator that your body is telling you, okay, something is not right. And that's the reason, and now there are a lot of, just one stool sample now we can do testing on and evaluate your entire microbiome, infection, or even inflammation. There's so many things that can be done about it. So definitely ask us if you have any more questions about it.
Casey asked, would the nutrient testing you're offering be considered a shortcut to the journaling you mentioned? Interesting question.
I mean, a short answer, I guess, would be yes, purely because the food sensitivity test will basically tell you what your body can reacts to. And for example, when someone says gluten-free, something gluten-free, but then, well, I'm eating something that's not, not gluten, something that is gluten-free, I'm sorry, but I'm still having symptoms, it might not be the gluten, it might be the wheat. There are different things that you may be allergic to or have a sensitivity to.
Right.
So those things can be definitely evaluated and sometimes what's interesting is your body, and again, your stress is just so crazy, because if you're at a high level of stress and do the test, you may become extremely reactive to certain ingredient, versus if you're not as stressed, it might not pop up as much. So there's a different data on that. But overall, definitely taking those tests can definitely help you. At the same time, and if they just say you have no problem with the nutrient part of it, however, maybe then something else, and there are different options that we can take. So, but it's more of a guide, and with specific fact that they're definitely looking at either your blood and your stool to see if there, something a little odd. Now, a lot of people can definitely try to do a micronutrient test as well, because most people, unfortunately, lack in something.
Yeah.
With the nutrients.
Yeah, and I think too, when it comes to testing, you're being intentional, right? Like, supplementation in general can be an expensive thing if you're taking a lot of supplements and, oh, I got to take this, I got to take that, I got to take that. It's overwhelming. Well, if you figure out exactly what you need and what you don't need, then you can cut back where you don't need it. And hi, Kiki, how you doing? And you can, scale up where it is needed,
And it's pretty interesting, when I ask our customers about a certain type of probiotic or certain type of a supplement, they're like, well, someone told me it's good for them. Well, that's good. You can definitely try that way. But even with the probiotic, with the testing that we have, we can actually decipher, well, this specific strain that you might benefit more from. So
Right.
you can even boil down whenever you buy a bottle of probiotic, they have all these crazy names of crazy number of different strains.
Lactobacillus something,
Yes,
or something.
and they range from
Acidophilus.
100 million to 100 billion units. Picking one and choosing is not a bad idea, especially if it works for you. But checking and see what you're lacking in might give better guidance.
Lisa on Instagram asked, does Metamucil help at all, good or bad? I understand something isn't right, but will this assist? Or if I were to have an issue, will it assist? Or is there another product that would make more sense?
Well, I mean, well, thanks, Lisa. Yeah, absolutely.
And Lisa is talking about our probiotic. Yes.
Yes.
Thanks.
They're different, and again, it depending on the symptoms. A lot of times, Metamucil is obviously a great idea. One thing I definitely let people know when you're taking Metamucil is to drink plenty of water with it. And I have definitely noticed where people are not drinking enough water with fiber. And number one, it's not just the fiber. I can't stress this enough. You have to drink plenty of water with it to make sure that it's moving. Along with that, try to eat good vegetables, a whole vegetable, and then the fruits rather as well, for good fiber. But if you feel like you're doing all that and something's still not right or my stool isn't right, I'm not feeling right, then there are different things that we can try to do, like aloe or check your stomach lining. Maybe your stomach lining are inflamed. Maybe there's an intestinal permeability. So there are different things that we can try to tackle from that point on if you feel you're eating okay or healthy enough.
Yeah. And more often than not, when we say, yeah, I think I'm doing a pretty good job, chances are there's some things you're not considering or counting because that's just what we do when we're doing those things. So that's why, in general, the journaling is a good thing too. It helps you realize for yourself, like, oh, wow, I had no idea I was doing that or eating that.
Right.
And those things could make a change there too. The other thing so Metamucil is obviously fiber, but like James said, the other thing to consider is, there's if you're not getting enough fruits, greens in general, there's other like, our fruits and greens supplement is a good one that we recommend too. Especially another thing that we recommend there's different challenges here, right? Like there are challenges that are continuing. And, hey, this is going on for a long time and clearly a bigger issue. I've been trying to eat well and clearly it's going on. Or it's, you know what, I really just had a bad weekend or a bad week or two and my stomach is very inflamed. That's when we recommend a product like Inflammacor or something
Sure.
like that to help tone down the inflammation from the damage you just did to your gut from a binge or whatever it was for whatever reason. But another cool rule too, and some of you may have heard this before, is called the 5 and 20 rule. This is from the FDA directly. I did not make this up. But the 5 and 20 rule says that if you're looking at the back of a food label, I don't have one near me here, but if you're looking at a food label that you'd find at the grocery store and see those percentage daily values, so if you see something that says 5% or less, you can consider it low in that nutrient. And if you see something that says 20% or more, you can consider it high in that nutrient. So when you're looking for something like fiber, if obviously if you're taking a Metamucil supplement or something like that, that's one thing. But if you're just trying to eat fiber naturally or quote unquote naturally through the regular things you're eating throughout the day and not using a supplement, look for something that is 20% or higher fiber, and you can consider that high in fiber. Even like some granola bars, I'd say, are like that and that kind of stuff too. May not be the most perfect, quote unquote perfect food to be eating, but that's going to help you get some fiber too, and fill you up as well, as opposed to just taking a supplement. So that's something to consider as well.
Sure.
Anything else you want to add before we wrap up here?
No, I think we're good. Definitely ask more questions. Definitely be more mindful of what's coming out of your butt, and 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 definitely share with your healthcare professional if you
Yeah,
feel something's
you
wrong
don't have
with
to
it.
share right now with us publicly on the internet. That's okay. We understand. But definitely, that's the whole reason we do this behind the counter show, or one of the main reasons we do the behind the counter show, is to kind of empower you guys all as patients, whether you come to our pharmacy or see other providers, or you're elsewhere around the country, and we're in New Jersey here. You should be asking these questions to your provider or the people in your network there who can help you say, hey, you know what, there is something wrong. Because the worst thing you can do is just ignore a problem until it becomes a bigger problem. You may as well tackle it head on when
Yep.
you're, proactive about it. So yeah, and now as far as the poopery goes, Marnie on Facebook was very engaged in the beginning here. So Marnie, if you're still on, congrats. We will send you the travel poopery if you would like them. Um, we can shoot you a message after this and coordinate details, or if you want to give us a call at 201 997 2010. That's the pharmacy in North Arlington, New Jersey. And thank you, Lisa, for sharing your kind words about our probiotic as well. And thank you, everyone, for joining. And if you're watching after the fact, obviously, feel free to comment and we'll get back to you. And we'll see everyone on the next one.
Thank you.
See you guys later.